Hello everyone! Today we're going to talk about something my patrons didn't vote on. Again. I'm sorry guys. I am working on a script for the Terry Pratchett video. But I'm doing a little more reading on existentialism first, and I'm trying to finish rereading one of his books first, so we're doing this right now. So, what makes a good queer anime? And some recommendations. So, being a queer fan of anime can be a really odd space. First of all, just being a queer person who wants to consume queer media here in the West is tough sometimes. Especially if you are a kid, and especially if you were a kid in the 90s and early 2000s like I was. There just wasn't much that existed in terms of Western children's media for queer representation. It's getting better bit by bit, but generally the trick is finding anything with actual queer characters in it. The bar is pretty low. The last 5 years have improved things a lot, but when I was a tween, the pickings were slim to none. We didn't have Steven Universe and Andy Mack and the slew of beautiful YA graphic novels that exist now with queer characters. That is not the case, though, with Japanese media. Japanese media with gay relationships is not super uncommon. Now, characters identifying as bi or trans is pretty rare, but boys love and yuri have been established genres for decades. The problem is, not a lot of it is very good. So, when I was a teenager, anime and manga was one of the only spaces I could find canon queer content, and the vast majority of that content was honestly not great. It's a little hard to talk about how important some boys love and yaoi and yuri was to me when I had just come out as bi, as places where I could see canon depictions of queerness that wasn't just fanfiction, and also acknowledge that a lot of that content was problematic, and also just low quality in general. There's weird age gaps and uncomfortable family dynamics, and issues with consent, all kinds of stuff in a lot of these anime. There's a lot of stereotypes and harmful tropes that can make these genres a bit of a minefield if you're someone who wants, genuinely good queer content, and moving outside those very specific genres rarely helps. Canonly queer characters in other anime and manga genres are pretty rare, and generally pretty stereotypical when we do have them, and almost never main characters. But I don't want to focus on the negatives in this video. I could talk for days about how the incest but not really incest vibes from Citrus make me unhappy. But instead, I want to lay out just a few rules for what I think is good queer anime, and then give y'all some suggestions, because good queer anime is out there. The trick is finding it. Please note that all suggestions are subject to my personal tastes, so what makes a queer anime good? Number 1, I want no weird age gaps or dubious consent issues portrayed in a positive manner in these shows, and ideally not at all. Assault is not good representation, so we want to avoid that at all costs. I have watched plenty of shows with this kind of stuff in it when I was younger, but we can do better now, especially for recommendations. 2, I want to avoid any distasteful relationship dynamics. And by that, I really mean like student-teacher and incesty stuff. This kind of ties into point 1, but really, I just don't want. 3, avoiding frustrating genre tropes. This includes like overly stereotypical seme-uke dynamics, bury your gaze tropes, things like queerness, especially in girls, being seen as a phase they will grow out of. Even stuff like men declaring that they are only into this one other guy and they aren't gay can be frustrating. Like, you can ID as bi, guys. Just do that. 4, the romance should be canon. Like, Word of God is fine and all, but for these recommendations, we really want it to be as clear as possible that this is what this is. I liked Free Iwatobi Swim Club as much as the next nerd girl, but, if it's not outright queerbaiting, it's at least close enough to be really frustrating. So let's stick to canon. 5. Just in general, being good. Good writing, good characters, good art direction, fun to watch. Representation alone doesn't mean it's a good show. We want good shows with representation. And 6, for the purposes of giving y'all recommendations, a way to watch these shows in the US without pirating. That's not really a measure of quality, but it will make it easier for most of y'all to watch these. So pretty simple and straightforward. Alright, so on to my actual suggestions in a numbered list. Like I said earlier, this is all my personal taste, so be aware of that. There will be no spoilers here, so you can safely watch as well. I won't give anything away. We're going to start at number 5 and work our way up. There will also be some honorable mentions at the end. Number 5, and don't click away if you've already seen this one. It's at the bottom of the list. There's more to come. Yuri on Ice. If you're on Tumblr, you've at least heard of this show. I like it for several reasons. First is that it's mostly a sports anime, so it's cool to see a canon main couple in that genre. It's also nice to see a queer anime about adult main characters. Anime in general is very teenager focused, so having adults as the mains is just nice. It's at the bottom of the list because, if we're being honest, most of you have already seen it, and there's always a thin veneer of plausible deniability over the most romantic moments. You'd have to have your head in the sand to deny that Victor and Yuri are canon, but the show does allow the sand to be there. So, you know. But it's good. Watch it, especially now that the rougher TV animation has been touched up for the DVD release. Number 4 is Sweet Blue Flowers. First of all, just look at the visuals for this show. It is soft pastel perfection. This show is more or less the typical Yuri schoolgirl anime done to its absolute best. There's first love and relationships, some light drama. It avoids any of the worst tropes we see in shows like this sometimes, and is just joyful to watch. Just enjoy. Number 3 is number 6. That's a very confusing sentence. The anime, number 6, is the only show on this list that isn't realistic fiction. Instead, it's sci-fi. And it's great. The romance between our leads, Shion and Nezumi, is definitely a B-plot to all the dystopian sci-fi conspiracies in the A-plot, but I kind of love it for that. It also has a really cool non-binary character named Inukashi. The last few episodes go pretty strange in the way that sci-fi anime tends to, and it may feel rushed, but it's worth the ride. Also, the manga handles the ending a little better, so that might be a good option for you. 2. Wandering Sun is number 2 on this list, though really, it's more of a tie for first. Wandering Sun is about a trans boy and a trans girl who are friends, starting middle school, dealing with puberty, trying to come out, and generally just live their lives. It's an anime that will probably make you cry, not because anything awful happens to them, but because the honesty with which all the events are shown, and the way the framing of the shots heightens the emotional impact are just so good. Also, it's so pretty. Look at the colors in this. It's beautiful. It's also the best anime I've ever seen that deals with trans characters and transness in general. And number 1. Bloom Into You made it to number 1 on this list, and that's partly because it's very topical right now, and also because I'm a sucker for a show that understands how to build on visual metaphors. It's also very interesting because it's probably the only time I've really seen the ace spectrum explored in anime. The main character, Yu, reads very strongly as being demi-romantic. Her angst over not being able to fall in love at the beginning, and the way her relationship with Nanami develops is, I think, a really thoughtful approach to the topic. It's also very pretty. This anime understands camera angles and lighting and framing like few others. It's expertly done. It's very, very satisfying to watch. So if you watch all of these and are hungry for more, I do have 3 honorable mentions to add. These anime, for one reason or another, didn't really fit on the main list, but I think they're good enough to watch if you want to check them out despite that. Number 1 for honorable mentions is Banana Fish. This is a new adaptation of a classic 80s manga. It's got drama and gang fights, and the animation looks really good. I didn't put it on the main list for 3 reasons. 1, whether or not the 2 main guys are actually in love is left intentionally unclear, which is frustrating. 2, there is a lot of discussion of one of the main characters being the survivor of sexual assault from an older man when he was younger. This is always portrayed as a horrific event, but it is upsetting content, and the abuser is like the canonly gay guy, while the leads are left with plausible deniability, and that bugs me. And 3, the ending. I don't want to go into spoilers, but look, Banana Fish is a classic, but it is a product of its time. You may like it, it's good, but it's an honorable mention for all of that. Honorable mention number 2 is Kase-san and the Morning Glories. It's an adorable high school yuri manga and anime. It's very wholesome and fun. But there isn't a legal way to get a hold of the anime here in the US yet. I couldn't even find a place to pirate it. But the manga is adorable, so there you go. Maybe pick up the manga while we wait for the anime to make its way over to the US. And honorable mention number 3 is Bodacious Space Pirates. This is a very silly show about a bunch of high school girls becoming kinda space pirates. I only make it an honorable mention because the main 2 girls are never actually made canon. There's a lot of subtext though. There is also a main lesbian side couple who are super cute, so it's worth watching if you like really goofy stuff and cute anime girls in pirate outfits. So yeah, that's my list. If you have a favorite that I didn't talk about, let me know in the comments because I am always up for some good queer anime content. And a big shout out to my patrons. I know y'all didn't vote for this, but I love you anyway. I promise I'll get that Pratchett script finished up soon. And if you all liked listening to this queer millennial feminist rant for a while, then do all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time.